How many of you are familiar with the law of individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority? Basically, the law of individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority says that as adult free agents, we exist in a little circle around our feet. And within that circle is where the entirety of our individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority exist. Outside of that little circle, we have no inherent rights, responsibility, or authority whatsoever. It's appropriate then to think of all other human beings as the weather to you. Very nice analogy, an almost perfect analogy, because the weather is always going to do whatever the weather does. So it makes no sense then, does it, for you to be burning up any of your attention and time trying to will the weather to do a thing that you want it to do, because that's pointless. In the end, no matter how hard you stomp around and complain, beat your head against the wall, cry and moan about the weather, it's still going to do whatever it does, which means you've just spent all these emotions and energy and time and attention in a totally futile and senseless way. Well, another thing that the law of individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority helps us understand is that children are not responsible for anything they do. A lot of people have a hard time coming to grips with this. But it's true. When you were 5, 6, 10 years old, that terrible mistake you made that you're still kicking yourself about, you were never responsible for that to begin with. Your parents were responsible for that. Oh, but I should have known that. We don't live in the world of shoulds. We live in the worlds of what is. What is true, what is not true. And in the real world, you weren't responsible for breaking that window or accidentally killing that cat or, just the worst thing that you've been hanging on to. Your parents were responsible for that. How do we know? Because you were dependent on your parents. Your parents were the responsible party for you. And this is based on human development. Yeah, there's actually a solid reasoning for this. Basically, nobody can be held responsible for things they're literally incapable of. If I come up to you and I say, hey, I would love for you to swim down to the bottom of the ocean, please, down to the Mariana Trench. I was in a boat and I dropped a marble there. I love that marble. I would like you to swim down there, no gear or anything. Just jump off the boat, swim down there, grab it for me and bring it back to me. You'd go, are you out of your mind? Not even submarines can go down there. Well, that doesn't matter to me, I'd say. I want you to get me that marble. You'd say, you're out of your mind. I'm incapable of jumping off the side of this boat, swimming down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, holding my breath, no gear on, finding your marble and bringing it back up to the surface. I'm not capable of that. It's impossible. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about things that people are incapable of, and it's not reasonable for us to have an expectation on somebody for something they're totally incapable of doing. So this means that all children, because they've not yet reached their full human development and are therefore incapable of healthfully and appropriately making decisions for themselves and navigating life, they don't possess their own individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority over themselves yet. The law of individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority is something that belongs exclusively to adult free agents, meaning people who have matured to a stage of full human development. Because once they've done that, then they are completely independent. They don't need somebody to take care of them because they've reached their full capacity as a human being. They can now take care of themselves if they only care to and try. So this is where the principle of capacity versus ability comes in. Just because I'm unable to understand mortgages don't mean I'm incapable of understanding mortgages. as an adult free agent, who has reached, I'm now at the apex of human development. Just because I'm unable to understand mortgages doesn't mean I'm incapable of understanding mortgages. As an adult free agent, if I'm not able to understand mortgages, I can still take charge over myself, learn how mortgages work, go get a job, and then buy myself a house, can't I? Saying somebody is unable to do a thing is not the same as saying that they're incapable of doing a thing. See, if you're incapable of doing a thing, what that literally means is that you couldn't, even if you wanted to. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't. My 6-year-old daughter is incapable of building her own house. It's not a matter of her just not trying hard enough. She couldn't do it no matter how hard she tried. She couldn't do it no matter how hard she wanted to. So it's not that she's just unable, but rather she's incapable. That possibility does not exist within her yet. Her development as a human being, it's just not there. This is an interesting thing to spend a lot of time thinking about, because as human beings, our capacities or our capabilities actually evolve as we mature. So there are a lot of things that 15-year-olds right now are literally incapable of, that they will not be incapable of in just another 5 years. Isn't that kind of amazing to think about? And that applies to you too. There were things that when you were 15 you were incapable of, that just a few years later you were not incapable of anymore. So think about your capacities or your capabilities as inherent possibilities that exist inside of you, regardless of whether you ever take advantage of them or not. So for example, I have the capacity to learn to play the trombone. I have that capacity. I'm unable because I've never bothered to learn, and to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really interest me. But still, that inherent possibility does exist within inside of me. If at any time I decide that that's something I'm interested in and would like to do, I could do it. Why? Because I have that capacity. It's an inherent possibility inside of me. I'm capable of playing the trombone even though I'm unable to play the trombone. Adult free agents have reached that apex of natural human development. They're there. All the capabilities and capacities that exist to human beings are now accessible to them. Before you reach that, there are capabilities and capacities that are not accessible to you because you haven't gotten there in your development yet. And so for children, for non-adult dependents, they're still developing. Because of this, it's adult parents who possess inherent rights, responsibility, and authority over their dependent non-adult children. When do children get their own individual inherent rights, responsibility, and authority? When they reach their full development. When their full human capacities or capabilities within them exist. Until that happens, who's responsible for them? For everything that children do, for their failures, for their mistakes, for everything. For anything that happens to them. Think about that. So it's not even something the child has done, it's something that has happened to the child. Who's responsible for that? The parents. The adult parents. And why? Because the adult parents had the capacity to protect them, to foresee the danger and avoid it. So children aren't responsible for their mistakes, their failures, none of these things. It's the parents who possess the inherent right to tell them how to live, what to do, what not to do, and all these things until they reach adulthood. I've used the example of my dog. If I'm out walking my dog in my neighborhood, he bites the neighbor. Guess who's responsible for my dog biting the neighbor? Is it my dog? It's not my dog, is it? It's me. Why am I responsible for what my dog did? Because I'm the responsible party. And it works no different for children. Why am I responsible for what my child does? Because I'm the responsible party. My child is dependent on me. That's how that works.